Hello friends and welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about The Watchers by A.M. Shine, as you can see there. This was a very interesting book. It was not on my radar at all until I started seeing trailers for the movie appear on all my streaming services and them talking about it. And because I believe that it is being directed by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, you know I am full force in to checking this out. So I decided to read the book first, and I'm going to talk about it today. As usual, this will be a two-part review. The first part will be a non-spoiler review, kind of give you a taste of the book, my general thoughts on it, help you decide whether or not you want to read it. And then the second part of the review will contain spoilers for those of you that don't care about spoilers or have already read the book. Alright, now let's start with my synopsis of the book. What would you do if your car died and a woman yelled at you to run? That's exactly the position Mina is in. Tasked on delivering a bird for a friend, her car dies out on the road, trees on both sides, and her phone won't work. She sets out to find help, only to find a woman yelling at her to run. As the light in the forest dims, she runs into a concrete building and ushered through another door before the lady locks it quickly. What Mina finds inside are two other people and a wall of glass. A single light hangs above them. And then the screams come. Horrible sounds that make Mina want to curl in a corner and hide. She can't see anything through the glass except reflection, while on the other side, the monsters watch. Now, my synopsis, I feel, leads this book to be very spooky and scary. If you've seen the trailer, maybe pause down, go watch the trailer, and come back. You might get the same vibes. I was a little nervous to pick this book up because I wasn't sure how scared I was going to be. Now the problem is, I wasn't scared at all. It was, at the beginning, it was very, very, very hard for me to get into the story. So it's just as I described in the synopsis. We have a girl who has a friend who needs a bird that he's selling to be delivered, and so she decides to go and drive and ends up stalling out in the middle of nowhere. And this is Ireland. There's not a lot of middle of nowheres. So she's like, what's going on? I guess I'll just walk the few yards to the closest town. Instead, she ends up walking the woods where a lady calls her. And the thing is, I guess I should be more scared about scary monsters that we have no clue about circling a building and you have no idea what to do. But I think the hardest disconnect for me in the book was the fact that they can't see the monsters. At least Mina can't see the monsters. So the room is essentially built completely concrete, but there's a fourth wall that is made of glass. And it's kind of like the glass you see in a lot of police shows with one side being a mirror, one side not. And so that's what happens for them, is that they see the mirror of themselves, but they're not able to see the creatures that are making the noise. And we get a description of the monsters from one of the people that are also in the building. It's the description she, quote, has seen of them. But still, it wasn't scary. I know I should have been scared, but I wasn't scared. I will take that all back when I talk about the end of the book, though. Now, the ending, I am quaking in my boots. Scare factor, the ending, 8 out of 10. Well, it helps that it's something that I'm extremely scared of, and I'll go more into detail about this in the spoiler portion because I don't want to ruin it for you all. But if you do end up being able to make it through this book, or maybe you're already too scared starting out, realize that the ending is very scary. Besides the fact that I wasn't scared, the writing is not something that I'm used to seeing in horror. It is more of a literary fiction, very descriptive writing that you would see from the fiction section of the bookstore. And though I appreciate it sometimes, and I've read other horror books with this type of writing, in this case, because I wasn't scared and I was still looking for the what's happening in the story, I felt slowed down by Shine's writing. And I won't say it's bad. Once I got into the book a little bit more and was able to quickly grasp his style, I'm going to assume their style, it's kind of an ambiguous name here. Once I was able to really grasp their style, I could get into the story a little bit more, but it was still, it's like those books where someone spends 2 pages describing a chair or a horse or something really random and out there. And I felt that at times this was the case. Now, the descriptions didn't last 2 pages, but the descriptive choice of words. The priority of the book felt more on writing than it did on the actual plot of the book. And that was a problem for me, especially when I'm reading such a plot-based genre. I wanted more horror. And if maybe the author had put scariness and emphasis on the scariness, I might have liked it more. I think Shine just had so much handed to them with this idea. It is original. It's exciting. I still was, in a way, entertained. And I appreciated the desire to elevate the genre. But again, it just wasn't what I was looking for when I picked up this book. Now, there's talks of there being a book 2 that's about to come out. The ending, yes, could lend to a book 2. I just am very fine with how it ended. Yes, there's a little bit of a hang, like, we're not completely, not all the bows are tied. So I could see where Shine wants to extend the story. But we're talking that it's been quite a while after. The movie's already been made for book 1. Is this a money grab? I don't know. I think, honestly, the book could just last where it is. And in a way, because of the way it ends, it makes the story feel a lot scary. Because I'm not sure what Shine is taking the end of this book, I'm not sure how Shine is going to create a whole nother book out of it. Multiple different ideas. I gotta keep my mouth shut now, because if I talk about the ending, that's gonna spoil it. But just warn, I think this book can stand on its own if you decide to read it. But there is a second book supposedly coming out, I believe, later this year. So if you don't like the ending, or you want the story to continue, don't worry, there's a second book. Why I'm complaining about a second book is very much lending to the fact of the ending of this book. And it's not something that I think Shine could pull off again. And because of that, it is the ending that saved this book entirely for me. If the ending did not happen, I would not be talking so highly about this book. It's again, like, from Blood and Ash, where I was like, just make it through the book, because the ending and book 2 are worth the work. And The Watchers, me personally, it almost wasn't worth the work until the very end, and that changed my entire opinion of the book. But if Shine isn't able to pull off that same level of ending that this book did, and I'm not sure that you can repeat it, it's kind of like, think of like M. Night Shyamalan's The Village and The Sixth Sense, how he would write these stories and there would be this twist at the end. Now, he's produced so many movies that we go in expecting that twist because he's prepped us for that, and he's not producing those twists anymore. And so I'm just worried that Shine's not going to be able to pull it off again, especially in this world. I'm very curious to read the second book in a completely different world. I need to check if there's a picture of the author, because now I just feel like a horrible person. Please ignore my gender-specific pronouns, because I actually don't know who they are. Anyway, because of the ending, I just don't think that's going to be able to be pulled off in the same universe. And so that's why I am not sure about book 2. Now, the last spoiler-free comment that I want to make that I think is very important to note out, and also another winning point about this book, is the fact that the characters never just did anything. This isn't like the horror movies or books where the characters I'm gonna go and inspect the noise and check it out, and then you're shouting at the screen of the book saying, don't go in, don't go in. That is not the case here. I felt that all of the characters' choices, reactions, the plot turns that they made, what they did was extremely realistic. There was especially one scene towards the end where you could be like, why is this character doing this? And I did feel that for a hot second, but then it is explained when the character did it. The beginning of the book to the end completely sets up this moment perfectly, and we see it play out, and you just were like, I could find myself in the same position doing the same thing. And when you can put yourself in the shoes of the characters and you're sitting there and you're like, I could do the same thing, that is magic. That is the end goal of writing. That is, especially in horror, if we can put our feet in the shoes of the characters and be like, I would be doing the same thing. One, that amps up the fear factor so much, because we too would be alling for that. And then two, you're just in the mind of your characters so well, and that you have built this entire backstory for this one essential moment in the story to prove it all. That is just chef's kiss, excellent excellently done, and I believe this is Shine's debut book, and so to be able to have that type of skill, holy fuck, where have you been this whole time? All right, click away now, ruin my metrics, because from this moment on, the ending of the book will be spoiled for you. And so I'm giving you plenty of time now, and I'm counting in my head. Please click away. If you haven't by this point, this is not my fault, because in 3 seconds, I'm going to tell you the end of the book. 1, 2, 3. Someone has played an extremely horrible trick on me. If you're any of my friends and reading buddies in this world, you're gonna die, because this is how you get me to read a fae book, okay? What about this book? Okay, what about this book? What about the description I read you hinted even the tiniest bit that this book is about the fae and fairies? Like, what the effing hell? And I'm raving about this book, and it has fucking fae in it. But Shine did the magic quality, which is he made the monsters. And that is why I have struggled to read fae books entirely. It's because all the fae books that people rave about are essentially stories where they're still, quote, monsters, but a human, a mortal, falls in love with them, and they somehow magically are able to overcome their aggression and anger and evilness to love this mortal human, whatever. Now, the only book that did get me with all of that was Enchantment of Ravens by... I don't remember. Enchantment of Ravens, I think, was excellently done and believable, and the fae rules in her book made it more approachable for the mortals to fall in love with the fae. But I digress, BS. The Watchers are about fae. As I was reading the book, I did not see the ending coming. It's not one of those endings where you see the end and you're mad at what happens. It's just that it was so well threaded through the plot. So when the reveal happened, I was fine with it, but it was so well threaded through the plot that even I didn't catch that, here I go with the names again, that the lady was a fae all along, and she was able to maintain a human presence and hide it and mimic the humans in her midst to convince them that she was also human. And so the whole time I was watching this, especially when the camera bits were discovered and the bunker was discovered, I expected this book to essentially just be a made-up scenario, a thought experiment. Something where people are doing these terrible experiments where they kidnap people and they put them in this and they study how these people react. Especially when it came to the fact that the glass was a mirror. Because you hear the sounds, but no one saw the monsters. And how could it not be something as simple as audio equipment producing it? No one saw anything. I know that, I want to say Senna's husband, the husband went missing and he doesn't appear again. That could have still been part of the thought experiment. He could have gone out, the people running the experiment kept him out of the game, and then they wanted to see what it would be like for the rest of the people, like how they would respond to what was happening. And so I was very much leaning into this being just some human experiment and being played out, and they were being watched, and it wasn't anything what it is. But then the ending happens where, no, the monsters are real, and there's one been living in your midst this whole time, and they somehow are magically contained in this forest. Well, yeah, that was fucking scarier. Like, especially, you know, Senna and Margaret, you know, Madeline. Her name is Madeline. Her names are Madeline and Sierra and Mina. Write these names down. So then essentially you find out that Madeline was the monster all along. Where are my thoughts going? Okay, I've got it now. So essentially about, you know, there's still a huge chunk of the book left when they are able to make out of the forest. And so it led me to be like, oh, there's something else here. And so the fact that they went back to their life and they had a moment of normality in life, and then they find out that Madeline this whole time was one of them, and now she's been unleashed into the normal world, like, that is scarier than them getting kidnapped and having humans watching them. And that ending was just really good. Now, I have two things that bothered me. I'm just making sure. Yes, so I have two things that bothered me personally about the book, in my personal opinion. One was the switching of point of views. It was fine. I still think we could have told it mostly through Mina, and the fact that it would weirdly switch here and there was a little weird. And I think that there could have been more mystery and a little bit more fear if we were able to keep it through a single point of view. But now that I'm thinking about it, this thought coming into my head, switching it up, and the very fact that I believe Madeline never had a POV should have been an indicator that she wasn't human. Now, the second thing that really bothered me was the fact of the people coming back to the real world. I see how Mina could probably still have her house, and she probably would have had some like final notices about not paying her bills. I don't know, maybe it works differently in Ireland. But Sierra coming back home and having her house fine, I believe she was gone for more than 6 months. That's a little fishy and a little weird. I mean, her electricity was still on. Like, how does it happen? Are there different rules in Ireland? Because I really, like, the whole time I was reading the book, like, bitch, you ain't going back to your life. That's over. You've been gone too long. You're a missing person. And again, one of the things I just love about this book so much is Shine's ability to create these characters that every choice is perfectly explained out before it is made. I mean, the very fact that Danny has this backstory which leads him to stealing the keys. That is explained. That is not just him making a rash decision. Well, it is him making a rash decision, but from a reader's perspective, I completely see all the events that led up to him finally wanting to steal the keys. And then we have the moment when he walks back into the woods instead of getting into the boat. And that, again, is so well set up for that moment. And I, like I said, I myself can see it happening because we have his abuse from his father led him to wanting to please Sierra, and then he sees her grief after losing her husband, and so when he sees her husband standing at the edge of the woods, he cannot do anything but assume that that is actually her husband, and he wants to make her happy, and so he's like trying to get the husband into the boat, and that makes perfect sense to me. And it's things like this. It was his ability to write Madeline in a way that you really did assume she was human the whole time, but then when you go back and you look at what happened, you go, oh shit, she wasn't human. And it's just, again, it's just well done. I didn't connect to Mina as much as I would have liked. Maybe that could have elevated the story. I did think that she was a little too even keel, and that is one of the reasons why it wasn't scary for me, because she was never actually really scared. The only time she was scared was when she was huddling in the hallway with Madeline, which now makes so much sense why the monsters kind of didn't come fully after them. But yeah, I think that if she had been a little bit more scared instead of just accepting the fate that she was in, that everything would have been okay. Like, that everything would have been scarier. But also, I'm a fan of Shine's Forever. He didn't kill the bird. Alright, friends, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give the video a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to the channel to not miss a single review, especially if you like my style of books. I try to keep all the books into the same vein. I also co-host a podcast with my writing friend where we do content recaps, writing life updates, industry trends, and we also host a horror or dark story book club. So make sure to check out the rest of the YouTube channel, and thank you again so much for listening, friends. I hope you have a magical day.